I'm Jordan Hatfield, and this is Faster Film Critic. Today on the show, we discuss It's a Wonderful Life with Kolter and Chase Fugel. It's a Wonderful Life is a 1946 Christmas feel-good film directed by Frank Capra, starring James Stewart and Donna Reed. Look, sometimes life just makes you want to jump off a bridge, but instead, do something nice for somebody, and then get in. We're going cinephiling. And how are you boys doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Life is grand. In fact, you might even say life is wonderful.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
I cannot believe that we are doing a Christmas movie already.
It's about time.
Yeah. My brother starts listening to Christmas music like right after Halloween.
Oh.
Okay, I can't do that.
I can't either. It's too early.
I'll start listening to Christmas music on like December 22nd.
Wow.
Okay, that's crazy.
That's really cutting it close.
I love Christmas, and I love Christmas movies, but I get burned out on the music pretty quick.
Right after Thanksgiving is Christmas music time.
Yeah.
So, It's a Wonderful Life.
Is it really a feel-good movie?
Yes, it is one of the greatest feel-good movies of all time. Maybe the greatest.
Yeah. I hadn't watched this in years. And started it last night. The last 10 minutes of that movie were very emotional. And it is. It's like all the things that happen to build up to that last scene. Pretty dark. Seriously dark. And what happens in that last 10 minutes of that movie really washes all that stuff away. And you are left with I'm going to say it, a wonderful feeling. I loved it.
The ending of that film is just so good. I watch the movie every year. It's never lost its potency. After that dark feel, it feels like there's a hole inside your stomach. And it's just filled with gratitude and joy and tears running down your face by the end. It's so good.
This film is referred to as the number one inspirational movie of all time. Like if you just Google number one inspirational movie, It's a Wonderful Life comes in at number one.
Whoa. Huh. I would have thought Wizard of Oz.
I would have thought Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
You guys are talking about the ending, but I want to talk about the beginning. I actually haven't seen this film in a really long time. I completely forgot the beginning. And as soon as we zoom past the moon and the stars start twinkling and talking to each other, I was like, what?
Yeah, same dude.
What is this?
What a weird way to start a movie. I'm like, really? This is goofy as hell. Hey, Clarence, hey.
It's really
not
weird.
Work for me.
1940s Christmas film starts in space.
Right? Yeah, I was laughing out loud for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. No, it is really weird.
My wife was going, what is this? What are they? And I'm like, they're aliens.
A little strange.
Yeah, it's not super obvious. And I also didn't think it was very nice that they were basically calling Clarence a dum-dum. That's not very nice.
Yeah.
It's not very nice for angels.
Yeah, what's that about?
And they withhold his wings for 200 years?
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay.
A bunch of dicks.
I thought you earned your wings on Earth. I didn't know you would die, only to go to heaven and work and slave for 200 years to impress upper management enough that they'll give you some wings.
Yeah, it's not very Christmassy. Hey, you want these wings? You got to pay your dues, Clarence. You got to pay them dues.
And then they look at George Bailey, who's about to kill himself, and they're like, oh, we got to send Clarence the dum-dum. Hopefully he doesn't mess this one up. Gosh.
Yeah, definitely an inspirational film, for sure.
Yeah. So, Chase, why do you watch this movie every year?
It comes down to tradition.
Okay.
But it's an amazing film. I just love it so much.
It's one of those movies that, like, it fills your cup back up. So I can see that, like, a little annual reminder of the things that you should be thankful for, kind of living in the moment.
Sacrificing all of your wants, your dreams, and your hopes for other people.
Yeah.
Just
it's
living your life the way someone else wants you to live it.
Yeah, exactly.
Those things fill my cup too.
Yeah.
And then once you reach your limit, an angel comes and guilt trips you.
Yeah.
I got to jump ahead. My favorite part of this whole movie is when he comes home and he's all frustrated with his wife. And she's like, honey, what's wrong? And he's like, is this the life you want to live? Why do we have to have all these kids?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, and in front of the kids, too. That's the best part. Watching this movie was so funny because Jordan, like you, I hadn't seen it in, I can't even remember the last time. And I'm seeing all these moments. And he's walking by the stairway banister and the top part is loose. And I'm thinking, Clark Griswold, having the same thing in National Lampoon's Vacation. And then when Clarence shows up to show him the error of his ways and remind him to stop feeling sorry for himself. Back to the Future too, man. There's that time rift and they go back and Biff is in charge and Biff's the guy who's got all these hotels and Marty's going to his old house. Somebody else is living there. And I was thinking, this is great. I love those kind of discoveries, man, where you're watching something really old and you find out how many other movies that it influenced along the way.
Yeah, it's always fun to see that. You're right. So this film, without question, despite all our jokes and our poking fun at it, is a beloved classic. I mean, this film is huge. However, I found it very interesting that it did not do well when it first came out.
Me too. Yeah.
What?
It didn't do well at all, and Frank Capra was so big then. He was one of the biggest directors in cinema.
Yeah.
It happened one night. You can't take it with you. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Yeah.
These films were huge in the 1930s. He comes out with It's a Wonderful Life in 1946, and it's just after the war. And it's said that America just wasn't ready for this kind of feel-good film.
Yeah.
The Best Years of Our Lives won the Oscar for Best Picture in 1946. That film is about three military men that come home and kind of address how their lives have changed because of the war and how their family lives changed because of the war. And that was kind of the mindset America was in at that time. This film did very, very poorly. In fact, Republic Pictures had the copyright to It's a Wonderful Life. And in 1974, they didn't even care to renew it.
Damn.
Once the copyright expired, television stations started picking the show up and playing it on TV. And it wasn't until the mid to late 1970s that this film really took off. It started showing on television all the time. People were seeing it. And at that point, people really gravitated toward this inspirational message of morality and kindness and friendship. But it took that long for the masses to really see and appreciate this film for what it is.
Yeah. What's funny is it's not like James Stewart. It's not like he was a nobody. This was back in the age of the pictures where people like that were a draw to the box office. Like stars themselves were what got people into the seat. And now it's revered as one of the most, as you said, one of the most inspirational movies of all time.
Speaking of James Stewart, he served in the war.
Yeah.
So obviously he had to kill people. In fact, he claimed that civilians were unintentionally killed, and that affected him greatly.
Sure.
And this was his first film he did when he came back. And he claims he wasn't in a great place emotionally.
Yeah.
In fact, there's the main kissing scene with Mary, played by Donna Reed. Mary's on the phone with her boyfriend, Sam.
Yeah.
And George Bailey's there, and he's been kind of rude to her. As she's talking to Sam on the phone, they kind of come together and they start getting closer and closer and closer. And it's kind of in this moment where George is recognizing how much he does care about Mary and they kiss.
Yeah.
James Stewart said he was very, very nervous about that scene. He hadn't done a kissing scene since he got back from the war, and it was hard on him. He was nervous. It was difficult for him.
There is another scene where he's in the bar and the realization has hit him that he's lost this money. He's not getting this $8,000 back. He's gone to Mr. Potter for help. Mr. Potter told him to pound sand, and he's dealing with the realization now that he's basically screwed and that he's got nowhere else to go. No other options are in front of him.
And he starts crying in that scene.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, he was really breaking down in that scene. That wasn't acting. That was him being emotionally overcome with what was happening there and also what was happening in his own life. You know, everything kind of came to a head in that moment for him. Those were real tears. I thought that was really cool.
This movie is so busy with dialogue. And it's that typical like, that's right. And then, you know, now we're going to go down to the stall and buy some flowers and bread and stuff for the kids. And so there are very few moments where it's like quiet and nobody's talking. And that is one of them. And man, it really does. Yeah. Like I started feeling emotional watching that because it's just this moment where, you know, the camera punches in on him a little bit and you're feeling all the pain that he's going through.
Very moving scene. James Stewart is fantastic in this film.
He is.
His range through this film is quite impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and this naturalistic kind of acting that he tries, I feel like is hardly ever seen in these old black and white films. They're always playing like genre characters.
Yeah. He is fully present in every scene. He's kind of goofy, but he's charming, yet he's competent, yet he's compassionate. He believes in the values that he holds. Everybody else around him believes in him. And having not seen this in so long, I was surprised that we spent the majority of the movie building up to the point where things go south for him. And a very small portion of the movie where things come back together for him. in a very, very touching way.
So I'm going to go in a direction that may be a little bit unpopular.
Okay.
Again, this film is such a beloved classic. People love it so much that it's hard to even ask questions that suggest something negative. But that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Oh, tread lightly.
For you especially, Chase, I will tread lightly. Did you find that the film dragged a little?
I was surprised when I saw the running time was over 2 hours. I can't say that it drug at any point because going back to the writing, I mean, the script for this movie is probably 230, 240 pages because it is very dialogue intense. There's this constant energy, like wherever George is at, he's always, talking to somebody or, there's very few kind of silent breaks in the film. We talked about that scene at the bar. That's one of them. The other scenes where he's on the bridge, it's snowing. He's staring into this kind of raging water underneath him and he's contemplating jumping off. So there are very few quiet moments in this movie. So I think that does help the pace. Yeah, I think it probably could get a little tedious. It's not as tedious as it is kind of intense when Henry Travers playing Clarence, who's the angel character in this movie, comes to save him. And George is complaining that, I wish I was never born. Clarence is like, don't say that. Be careful what you wish for. I'll show you what your life would be like had you not been born. And then George
and the
is
lives of people around you, like all the lives of the people that you have interacted with and uplifted and helped in positive ways.
Yeah. That's where the movie kind of picked up for me. Like that's where it really kind of hits its full stride and its full momentum. George basically realizes that his brother Harry wouldn't have survived had George not been born, that the town itself would have been transformed from this cute little place that he constantly kind of criticized, but became Pottersville. And he's frantically trying to, what's going on? And nobody recognizes me. And da-da-da-da. So, to your point, Jordan, the movie might have started getting a little tedious up until the point where he starts kind of realizing what the world would be like if he did not have a presence in it.
Right there in the middle, right before this turn that you're speaking of, where he meets with Clarence and says he wishes he wasn't born. Right up until that point, right there in the middle somewhere, I started to think, what's taking us so long? Like, What are we doing? I can't help but say I felt myself sliding into boredom just a little bit.
Okay.
And then I was quickly pulled out of that.
Sure.
You know what I think? I think you should ask Santa for some patience.
Shots fired. The film is wonderful. There's so much about this film to love. There's so many scenes that I loved. But right there in the middle, 15 minutes, you take 15 minutes out of this film.
Yeah.
The first quarter of the film and the last quarter of the film is absolutely magnificent.
Yeah.
I just found it there in the middle. It was just taking a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually don't disagree with that. I think that I'm happy with what it is, but I think that, a little bit tighter pacing would help. Because you don't really see, there's not a whole lot of humor in the movie until the ending when Clarence the Angel just kind of appears and he's very blasé about, I'm your guardian angel. You got the character that's with George and he runs out of the room. He can't, everybody thinks George is crazy along with Clarence. And there's a great line at the end when George is kind of pleading for forgiveness and asking to be able to go back to see his family. And then this beautiful scene where he's on the bridge and he's stuck in this weird world in which nobody knows him. And he's basically begging to return to the one that he knows. And the snow starts kind of coming down again, signaling that he's back in his world where he's alive and has a presence in it. Goes back to the house and everyone's, all the community people are showing up with money to help him. And Annie, one of the characters earlier in the film, comes up and pulls out this wad of money and she goes, I've been saving this money for a divorce in case I ever got married.
That was great.
I'll be honest. And I laughed so hard, but I also teared up a little bit, man. I was like, it's such a moment of like graciousness and everybody's coming in. And for that, I was like, that was the tipping point when she throws that money down and makes that line. I kind of, burst out in laughter, but I could feel my eyes welling up a little bit too. It was just a very wholesome, nice feeling.
So there's two things I want to comment on there.
Yeah.
You say the comedy really hits in the latter half of the film. There is that scene early on when he is with Mary and they're leaving the dance and they're soaking wet and she's wearing the robe.
Yeah.
And he steps on her robe and it comes off and she jumps into the bush. And he goes to hand her the robe and he's like, well, wait a second.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting situation. A situation that most men don't find themselves into often.
Yeah, that's
How do
true.
I want to play this?
Yeah.
I love that scene.
That's
I
one of
thought
my
that scene
favorite
was
scenes.
really funny. I thought that scene
Yeah.
was great. The other thing I wanted to comment on was the snow. During this period of time, movie productions would often bleach cornflakes, and they would use that as snow. And the problem with this is they would be crunchy. When the actors would walk over them, it would be crunchy. And so they would have to go back in post and re-record some of the dialogue
Right.
to take out the crunchiness of the snowflakes.
Yeah.
The problem is James Stewart was known for not doing very well on a second and third take. He was
Okay.
kind of a first take actor, and he was known for this. And so Frank Capra didn't want to have this fight in post-production. So they came up with a brand new method for creating this fake snow using foamite. The way they used snow in this film is still used today. It completely changed the way they use fake snow from that point forward. I thought that was a pretty cool little fact about
80
this
years
film.
later. That's crazy.
Yeah. Here's another thing is this film was shot in California in July. It was really hot. And there are some scenes where I've read that you can see James Stewart actually sweating because it's so hot. I didn't pick them up in the movie, but
Wow.
this film was not shot in the Midwest in the middle of January.
Interesting.
California in July.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Kolter, you mentioned the period of the movie where George Bailey wished he wasn't born.
Yeah.
And Clarence grants him this wish for a brief period of time to try and enlighten him. One of my favorite things about the film is how during this section of the movie, when George Bailey's birth never happened, the entire aesthetic of the film changes here.
That's a good point.
The film goes very film noir.
Yes. Yeah.
It goes very dark,
Yep.
a lot of backlighting.
Yep.
I thought that whole aesthetic change to kind of subconsciously bring us into this new reality where he doesn't exist
Yeah.
was really cool. Such a great creative idea. Absolutely loved it. And there's the scene where they zoom in close to George Bailey.
Yeah. I know which one you're talking about.
It's a portrait shot.
Yeah.
And he breaks the fourth wall. He slowly turns and looks right directly at the audience.
Yeah.
And just, it's dark and the contrast in his face.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought it was a really cool way to kind of portray visually the darkness of this concept, of this idea of him not being born. And then he's on the bridge and he kind of snaps back into reality. At that moment, the snow starts falling again to signify that he's back.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, boom, it changes to kind of a light picture all over again. I thought that was a really, really cool creative aesthetic
Yeah.
and decision in that.
Yeah. It's complemented on top of that by established characters appearing a little uglier and they're meaner and they're more distant. You know, characters that George kind of helped to take a different path early in the movie are nasty and standoffish and drunken and just kind of horrible. And it's complemented by the way the characters are depicted on top of that.
Yes, Kolter, great observation. Chase, you had something?
That scene on the bridge, right after he goes back and sees everybody in his town, which is now Pottersville. That's one of my favorite scenes of all time.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, when the snow starts to fall and the screen actually gets lighter from the snow, and there's not a huge speech, it's not fancy or anything. He's just, I want to live again. Like, that's it.
And he runs through this town that he has had such animosity for, and he's thankful for everything in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's thankful for the town, for the people of the town, for the buildings in the town, for everything that he complained about up until that point. He is now so grateful for.
Yeah.
If there's one movie that you guys could pick that you think most closely emulates just the feel that this movie kind of invokes in the viewer, what would it be?
Barbie's what comes to mind.
Are you serious?
Okay.
It's a little goofy, right? She's trying to figure out who she is. She doesn't like her life. She wishes she could change.
Dang.
She goes into a new reality.
Okay.
Discovers how great things really are for her. She comes back into Mattel land and is just the hero.
Okay.
I wouldn't need to think about it. That analogy actually works better than I thought when I initially said Barbie. As I worked through
agree.
that, I was like, dang, there's
Hey,
a
wait a
lot of
minute.
similarities here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great question, Kolter. I would need to think about it. What would your answer be?
So for me, it's actually Scrooged.
With Bill Murray?
Yeah, man. Obviously, that is much more of a Christmas Carol. But there are elements of A Christmas Carol in It's a Wonderful Life. And it's the same thing except for George Bailey's a pretty good character throughout most of the movie. And he really only becomes kind of a butthole when things are not going well. And he takes that turn where he's kind of being crappy to his family because he's lost all this money. Whereas Bill Murray's character in Scrooged is kind of a jerk throughout the whole movie. And then through the experience that he has, he learns to recapture that good side of his character and his personality, and he becomes more caring again. And the feeling at the end of that movie most closely resembles the ending of It's a Wonderful Life, where it's just wonderful, man. It leaves you with that very similar kind of feeling of retribution and reclamation. And that's the closest movie I can think of, especially a Christmas movie, that kind of most closely emulates the feel that you get at the end of It's a Wonderful Life.
So I haven't seen Scrooged. I'm going to have to go check that out.
Jordan.
I know, right? What am I doing?
I have to say, as a Christmas film, the most comparable in its ending, or the emotional impact in the ending, I have to compare it to Home Alone.
Home Alone is such a great Christmas
man, it's
movie.
one of my go-tos.
Yeah.
It's one of my go-tos.
At the start, he's wishing for his family to go away. And just ungrateful little shit.
Yeah.
And then he sees life without them.
Yeah.
He realizes how lonely it is.
Yeah.
Really, how much of an impact they have on him. And then at the end, it makes for this heartwarming holiday feel.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's a good one, man. I love Home Alone,
So there is one other little inside story in It's a Wonderful Life that I think is worth talking about. The very beginning, George Bailey's a young kid and he's working in the store.
Hot dog.
And
Sorry.
so George Bailey's working in the store. And the pharmacist has just discovered that his son had died, and so he's sad. And he's going back to fill this prescription for a young child in the community, and he actually fills it with poison.
Yeah.
Right? And George Bailey is supposed to go deliver it, and of course he doesn't because he's noticed what happens. And as he comes back, Mr. Goer, who is the pharmacist, is drunk, and he's angry, and he slaps George Bailey.
Yeah, man.
So Mr. Goer, the pharmacist, is played by H.P. Warner, who was a method actor.
Yeah.
And he really got drunk for this scene.
What?
And when he hits George Bailey,
You can tell.
he really hit him so hard that he was bleeding.
Oh, my God.
And
dude.
so
Gosh.
the scene where he immediately runs up and kind of hugs him after was partly
Genuine.
because he recognized, oh my
man.
gosh, I just
Oh,
slammed
no.
this poor little kid
Gosh.
actor in the
Oh,
film.
man.
You can't get away with that today.
Oh, no, dude.
1946 was a different time.
Yeah, different time, yeah.
They did it for real back then.
When we do our pictures, we slap real kids around, see? That's the way to get a good performance.
There's so much here to love about It's a Wonderful Life. I can't wait to hear how you guys rate it. 1 to 5.
This is without a doubt a 5-star film for me. Just so perfect.
Couldn't agree more. It's a 5 for me too, and just leaves you with a wonderful feeling. It's a interesting, thought-provoking, inspirational journey. I was really glad that this was the movie for this week, and really happy that I watched it, man. I was in a better mood when it was over. Went over and gave the cat a few pets, and checked on my parents, called a few friends, and boy howdy, it was nice.
You guys are making me feel like Mr. Potter.
As you should. Anything below a 5, you're
Coming here, crawling on your knees, asking me for money.
I'm going to give this film a 4. I think this film is a fantastic film. Absolutely love it. The message of the film is 5.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. But it's not a film that I'm dying to go watch again. I've seen it.
Fair.
I've been uplifted. I've been inspired. I'm going to be more grateful. I'm going to help my neighbors. I'm going to try and build my community.
Yeah.
I'll watch it again in another couple years, I'm sure, and I'll love it again. But it's not one that I'm dying to get back to.
Okay.
Message is a 5. James Stewart is a 5. The film is a 4. Call me Mr. Potter.
If you enjoy the lighthearted and sincere feel of It's a Wonderful Life and the performance of James Stewart, I believe you're obligated to see the 1940 film directed by Ernst Lubitsch, The Shop Around the Corner. It's a warm, lighthearted gem that takes place around the holidays and also stars James Stewart. You are doing yourself a disservice if you do not watch this movie.
Thank you for listening to Faster Film Critic, and please join us next week when we discuss Fargo, directed by the visionaries Joel and Ethan Coen. We cannot wait. It's going to be a bloody good time. You can also follow us on Letterboxd, Cinetrack, Instagram, email us at fasterfilmcritic@gmail.com. Hit us up if you have any questions, comments, feedback, or review requests, and please share this episode with your movie-loving friends.